Article number 4, The Cover-Up. This article is based primarily on the notes I took as I documented the cover-up. April 19, 1993, the cover-up began while the fire still burned, as tanks pushed objects into the flames. April 26, 1993, approximately. After most of the bodies had been removed, the Texas Rangers arrived to conduct the investigation and were immediately sworn in as deputy federal marshals. All evidence was sent to the FBI crime lab in Washington, D.C. Using the Texas Ranger investigation for cover, the FBI investigated and exonerated themselves. May 7, 1993, approximately. A 40 cubic yard dumpster full of quote-unquote trash was sent to the landfill on Hubby Hill Road before the investigators for the Koreshite defendants were allowed on the site. The trash may well have included bodies of those Koreshites who died in the April 19, 1993 dawn firefight as the FBI attempted to enter the building through the tunnels. The firefight occurred in the bunker and tunnel complex that stretched between the northwest corner of the pool and the back door of the buried bus. The Linda Thompson video, Waco, the Big Lie, shows media footage of smoke coming from this area just after sunrise that morning. About 6 a.m. that morning, the FBI called Parkland Hospital in Dallas and put their burn unit on standby, which also suggests casualties. If there were bodies from that firefight, they would have been noticeably different from the charred remains of those who died in the fire. Hubby Hill Road was renamed Old McGregor Road and has been renamed again. Now it is called Hannah Hill Road. The cement plant that identified the road has been torn down. When I checked years ago, guards were obvious, but now there is only a gatehouse where vehicles must check in and out. May 9th through 11th, 1993. Koreshite defendants, investigator Raymond Salinas was allowed on the site. He could not videotape the underground room outside the back door of the buried bus because it was full of mud. He therefore could not videotape the tunnel leading from his room to the underground bunker at the northwest corner of the pool. A 55-gallon drum, still visible in the ruin, linked this bunker to the small underground rooms, also still visible, which would have been Koresh's quarters. The tunnel complex that Ramon Salinas could not videotape was the scene of the dawn firefight on April 19, 1993. Ramon Salinas' company was shortly hired to provide 24-hour security in the ruin. May 12, 1993. The site was bulldozed by a local construction company, the ATF paid. Before the bulldozers arrived, Koresh's bullets had no ground contact. The bullets were on the concrete floor of what government documents call the interior bunker. This was the vault of the administration building that was destroyed by arson in 1983. Koresh built his church around the vault. His central tower sat atop of it. This old vault survived both fires because it had a concrete roof and floor and concrete block walls. As the vault was bulldozed, the bullets were spread around the site. Although government documents established that the state of Texas knew about the bulldozing for at least a week before it took place, no one removed the bullets. The bullets caused the lead contamination. May 17, 1993. After local attorney Gary Coker volunteered to pay the filing fee, Judge Bill Logue of the 19th District Court of McLennan County issued a temporary order giving the Branch Davidian property, the site of the standoff, to the surviving followers of David Koresh without notice to defendant trustee George Roden, who was a political prisoner in Vernon State Hospital for the criminally insane. May 21, 1993, the Texas Water Commission took the first lead samples 9 days after the bulldozing, and shortly thereafter they quarantined the property for lead contamination. May 24th, 1993, George Roden received notice of the May 25th hearing on the ownership of the Branch Davidian property. I had no phone. By the grace of God, I got the message he left with Joyce Beatty. May 25th, 1993. I, Amo Paul Bishop Roden, brought newspaper clippings and other documents to the hearing which established that Koresh's survivor's claim of adverse possession, squatter's rights, was short of the minimum of 5 years peaceable and exclusive possession required by law. I filed copies of the documents in the legal file. Although the judge awarded the property to the Koreshites at the hearing, no court order was issued. I believe this early attempt to give the property to Koresh's followers would have been followed by government seizure of the property under the federal felony forfeiture statutes. June 15th, 1993, approximately. Repeated sabotage destroyed my old Volvo, leaving me afoot. The Texas Water Commission attempted to call a meeting to discuss how the church would pay the cost of the lead contamination cleanup. I shouted threats of lawsuits at them. June 30th, 1993, approximately. The Texas Water Commission erected a 6-foot chain-link quarantine fence with 3 rows of barbed wire on top around 7 acres, which surrounded the site of the fire. July 12, 1993. McLennan County closed the Church Road, Double EE Ranch Road, for 6 weeks to allow 3 days of road repair. The road was reinforced during the standoff for tank traffic. It was in good condition when it was closed for repairs. That afternoon, I drove a borrowed pickup truck up Elk Road to a hill south of the property and looked across the fields at the ruin. I saw a large metal arm consistent with heavy digging equipment lift up once from the ruin, then disappear and failed to reappear in the 5 minutes that I watched. I believe they were digging up the tunnels where the Sunrise firefight took place on April 19, 1993, and did not want to be observed doing it. July 13, 1993. I moved into a ditch at the corner of Elk Road and Double EE Ranch Road and gave visitors directions or took them on guided tours of the site for $5 per tour. July 14, 1993. I began an unauthorized investigation through a hole in the fence. About 10 days later, I was arrested and posted bond. Charges were never filed against me because many others had violated the quarantine, and there were pictures of them standing in line to be warned by deputy sheriffs. I was the only one arrested. July 26, 1993, approximately. The Texas Water Commission hired Salinas Security to provide 24-hour security inside the quarantine fence that surrounded the site of the fire. Double EE Ranch Road reopened. August 24th, 1993. Koreshite attorney Gary Coker's motion for a court order to sell the property was scheduled for 1:30 p.m. At 1:15, I filed documents from deed records, which proved that Koresh's claim was based on an invalid deed, and then handed out copies to counsel. Coker and the other lawyers asked for and got a continuance. That afternoon, I moved onto the property and opened it to the public by removing barricades from the driveway. August 25, 1993. McLennan County Sheriff's Department. Deputies ordered me to leave or be arrested. I suggested that they tell Koresh's followers' attorney, Gary Coker, that I would sue both him and his clients for malicious prosecution if he allowed his clients to sign a complaint against me. Then I told them, bring the handcuffs. They were unable to get a complaint signed, so they backed down. October 1st, 1993, approximately. Elijah Warden had seen a vision of people surrounded by flames in 1990 in Axtell, Texas, a few miles away. He wrote and recorded music in 1990 about his vision, entitling the album From the Ashes. Now he volunteered to give a free memorial concert at the church, Andrew Hood, a self-proclaimed prophet with no connection to the church, volunteered to build a stage. October 13th, 1993, approximately. My tent blew into shreds in a rainstorm, so I had moved into an abandoned military shipping box. The McLennan County Sheriff's Department removed it on 20 minutes' notice. We've come to unhome you, girl. I set up a makeshift shelter with a tarp, plywood, and pallets. October 23rd, 1993. Elijah Warden made music. Andrew Hood, who I forbid to add a building to the stage because I thought he was probably an undercover agent, had a message relayed to me from the sheriff. That message authorized anyone to build on the property because the court had not determined ownership. Hood built an 8-foot by 16-foot building on the stage, hung a banner advertising the Christian church, and began a short-lived attempt to take over the church with a simple gospel message. November 8th, 1993. I finished building an 8-foot by 8-foot shack to live in and put up a sign that designated it the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventist office. Eventually, this shack became the Second Standoff Museum. November 20th, 1993. I met Linda Thompson, the lawyer who compiled the media footage in her video, Waco, the Big Lie, on the property, and we compared notes for 2 hours. I was never able to contact her again. December 16th, 1993. The Texas Water Commission obtained a temporary injunction to clean up the lead contamination. George Roden received notice of this hearing on January 4th, 1994. I filed his appeal protesting this denial of notice and hearing, the bedrocks of due process. It was dismissed for lack of jurisdiction, but the cleanup was postponed. December 27th, 1993. I heard 2 explosions in the ruin inside the fence, which occurred around midnight. January 11th, 1994. I heard another explosion in the ruin area around midnight. I believe they were destroying the tunnels to hide the fact that Koresh escaped. Because there were several tunnel entries under the building, escape was clearly Koresh's plan. February 26th, 1994. The Koreshite defendants were mostly convicted. Federal Judge Walter Smith eliminated over 2/3 of the jury pool with a questionnaire which required details of religious affiliation and commitment, opinions of media bias and coverage of the standoff, membership in rifle associations or gun ownership, membership in informed jury associations, which place justice above judges' instructions, and exposure to the Linda Thompson video, Waco, the Big Lie. The names of the jurors were kept secret. After allowing 3 weeks for the prosecution to present its case, the defense rested in a day and a half without allowing any Koreshite to testify, since Judge Smith had removed Wayne Martin's statements that the ATF had fired first from the 911 tape before the jury heard it. No juror heard that the Koreshite claim that the ATF fired first. The ATF wounded Koresh in his side as he stood in the front doorway to receive the warrant. Then the FBI hid the metal front door, which was riddled with incoming rounds fired on Koresh. More on this door follows. The jury found the defendants not guilty of murder and conspiracy to murder. They found them guilty of provoked manslaughter and possession of a firearm with intent to commit a felony. The latter charge was part of murder or conspiracy to murder charge and should not have been included without a conviction on one of those charges. Initially, the judge dismissed the possession with intent conviction. Then, without resubmitting the issue to the jury, the judge reinstated the conviction. He doubled the statutory maximums and sentenced most defendants to 40 years. This trial information in this paragraph comes from Jack DeVault, who documented the trial and gave me a copy of his book, The Waco Whitewash. April 17, 1994, the day of information, was a collage of truth and falsehood because undercover agents heavily infiltrated it. Several of them spoke that day. May 25, 1994. Prior to the cleanup and investigations, 3 trucks arrived at 11 p.m., apparently to remove loads from the quarantine area. 2 of these trucks returned at 2 a.m. and again at 4 a.m. for further loads. An aerial photo, which was shown to me in September 1993, showed a small circular hole in the center of the roof of the interior bunker, the old vault. I had heard rumors of a thermite device on top of this bunker, and the hole was consistent with this type of device. Thermite will burn through an engine block in 30 seconds. Most of the children were in this vault, and the thermite killed them instantly. Because thermite leaves characteristic chemical residues, I believe the government stole this vault. June 24, 1994. Hearings in the morning on the lead contamination cleanup and the official Branch Davidian investigations were held in the smallest courtroom in the courthouse to deny me, an intervener, the right to defend. Under Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, if there is no room at the counsel table, interveners may be denied access. Both the cleanup by the Texas Water Commission and the official Branch Davidian investigation by Gordon Novel, accused by Lyndon LaRouche, publisher of the New Federalist, of being a career government agent provocateur, were approved. That afternoon, my plea and intervention was challenged, but Judge McDonald ruled that I was a party to the lawsuit. He declined to rule on the ownership of the property. The survivors of Koresh's church were awarded all the equipment, including the Rodin's house moving gear. In a media interview, the Texas Water Commission dropped their demand that the church pay for the cleanup. August to October 1994. 10 25 cubic yard dumpsters were placed along the driveway in front of the site of the ruin, and the lead contamination cleanup began. The cleanup removed the soil from under the site and checked each rubble pile for evidence. The missing metal front door was found in a rubble pile. This metal door would have been important to the defense of the Koreshites because it showed the incoming rounds fired on Koresh as he stood in the front door to accept the warrant. The door went up in the claw that was moving rubble piece by piece from an old pile to a new pile. I saw it and yelled, "The door, the door, they found the door," to alert visiting friends. The door hung in the claw for a minute or two, then was lowered to the ground between the old and new rubble piles. Work stopped, and everyone went home an hour and a half early. The door never surfaced again. During the lead contamination cleanup, workers were seen in the ruin between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. I believe underground structures were removed or altered. The dumpsters had side doors which would have made stealing evidence easy. A layer of dirt was placed on top of each dumpster's contents before it was removed from the site. November 1st, 1994, approximately. With Andrew Hood's permission, I used the building he built on the stage as a free museum. November 18th, 1994, the security guards left. I split my aluminum extension ladder and put it over the gate to allow visitors to access the ruin. Wally Kennett threw my ladder into the pond. November 20th, 1994, Andrew Hood requested that I vacate his building so Koresh clone Ron Cole, who I believe was a government agent, could move into it. I told him to get a court order. The deputies who responded to his 911 call told him the same thing. Hood responded by repeated visits to threaten me. I brought a long-barreled .22 handgun from my friend Joe Robert. November 23rd, 1994. Andrew Hood brought Wally Kennett, Ron Cole, and a locksmith onto the property to change the lock on his building. Since Kennett was hiding along the side of the building with a gun in his hand, I suspect killing me was also intended. I fired a shot into the air toward the ponds, 90 degrees away from them, and joined them in the yard about 30 feet from cover. Rather than shoot me down in my own yard, they changed plans and claimed I fired on Andrew Hood. I was arrested for felony deadly conduct. Hood locked the building. November 26, 1994. I posted bond. While I was jailed, my shack was robbed and my collection of fire videos and pictures and $40 was stolen. January 6, 1995. I was arraigned. The prosecution suggested to the judge that I prove myself mentally competent to refuse a free attorney. January 15, 1995. A visitor kicked the door of Andrew Hood's building and I recovered most of the display. My collection of Branch Davidian tracts and some artifacts had been stolen by Andrew Hood and Koresh follower Catherine Matson. The McLennan County Sheriff's Department took my complaint, but no charges were filed. Both of the eyewitnesses, Mr. and Mrs. Plum, were dead when I tried to subpoena them in 1998. February 10, 1995. Despite extreme pressure from both judge and prosecution, I continued to refuse a free attorney at the pretrial hearing. I knew a quote-unquote free attorney had gotten life in mental hospital for George Roden when he took Dale Adair's gun away from him and shot him in self-defense. I knew 15 attorneys, some free, had all double-crossed the Koreshite defendants. The prosecution was granted an 8-point gag order to hamper my defense. February 13, 1995. The prosecution dismissed the charges against me. April 19, 1995. The Oklahoma City bombing was initially blamed on the Branch Davidians. The National Enquirer blamed me personally for inciting it. The Loud Cry Museum reopened in a 12 by 16 foot building that I built with the help of my friends. Spring 1995, the government began a campaign to keep people away from the church with disinformation. They placed their people where tourists asked for directions and told them, "There's nothing there and you'll never find it." I had 80 hand-painted road signs stolen in 6 months. July 26, 1995, congressional hearings began. Congress ignored the media footage from NBC, CBS, and CNN that was taken from raised platforms. They ignored FBI video taken on the property and the aerial pictures of the fire taken April 19, 1993 from a government helicopter. The hearings concentrated on vilifying David Koresh. This became the pattern for all subsequent investigations. Even the supposedly independent Danforth investigation mentioned the media footage only in passing, implying it was not worth study. The Danforth report also misrepresented the FBI heat scans and ignored FBI aerial photos. September 19, 1996. My original shack reopened as the Second Standoff Museum. It exposed the cover-up and the struggle for control of the church property. January 1st, 1997. 5 separate fires burned the Loud Cry Museum, the Second Standoff Museum, Hood's building, my living quarters, and the electric light pole. With my husband Tom Drake's help, I built a pavilion to replace them. March 1998. While I was in Florida, the pavilion was torn down by one of Koreshite Clive Doyle's supporters. Clive built his visitor center on its exact location. December 1998. Trustee George Roden died in state custody in suspicious circumstances. The first report was a broken neck. This was amended to a heart attack. The state gave George a free funeral and kept the body. As the last living trustee, George represented an insurmountable obstacle to Koresh's survivors' control of the property. I had credibility, they didn't. Summer 2000. My house on the property was destroyed by arson. For more on the cover-up, see number 8, the Danforth investigation, the wrongful death lawsuit, and number 6, King of the Hill. Amo Paul Bishop Roden.